All right, in this tutorial, we're going to look at shadows of objects and how we start using basically like layering and masking in order to generate shadows. At this stage, guys, we're not really getting into file management because I'm just sort of showing you like one thing here and there. But once you get into actually populating a whole rendering with people and stuff like that, then you're going to need to really control your layers with folders and groups and stuff like that. But we'll talk about that at a later, more appropriate time. In the meantime, what I do want you to do is grab a picture of a person silhouette. So let's just do person silhouette. There are a few that you can get that don't have a bunch of like Photoshop like security marks on top of it. So that's fine to just grab one of these. So I'm going to save as. This one won't let you copy, but let's go to, I'm just going to put it in my dump folder. And then you can go into Photoshop. I'm going to say file place. Oh, it didn't let me save the image. Aha, that's why I can't save that image. All right. I grabbed a different one that I actually could save. This one right here. So I'll save image. What was that one called? Large thumbnail. That's very generic. All right. So this one comes in with a white background. Yours might not. This is kind of where that feathering is going to come in a lot of handy, I think. Are you guys familiar with the magic wand tool?
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty nifty. I'm glad you are. So the magic wand tool is going to select all the pixels that are within a certain color range of the color you selected in that pixel. So if I select all of those pixels and I hit delete, it needs to be rasterized first. Layer, rasterize, layer. I showed you guys rasterizing already, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you can hit delete. But it's going to have that sort of, I mean, you can't really see it as well up here, but if you do this on your screen with a similar pixelated image, you're going to see a little white outline around the person. I don't know about you, but that bothers the hell out of me. So what I like to do when I have something like this that's not super high resolution and it creates a little white edge, you can feather it. You can feather the edge by 1 pixel, and it usually gets rid of that edge fairly effectively. So I'm going to go to Select, Modify, Feather, 1 pixel, hit OK, hit Delete, and that made it even worse. That's weird. Rarely does that. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean feather. My mistake. What I meant to say was go to Select, Modify, and go to Expand. Okay, so the difference here between Expand and Contract, I selected the white material, right? So that means the outer edge is like the positive selection is from this edge to the outline of the person. So if I, you would think like, oh, I need to contract it on the person, but that's not the case because I didn't select the black pixel, I selected the white pixel. So in this case, I would want to expand by 1. I can delete that, and there's my person. No white edge. All right, so what you guys need to be aware of here and what I'm trying to show you is that you need to know a little bit about the technical nature of how your image is composed in order to create a silhouette of a person, and more importantly, to create a shadow for that person. Because right now, this person is obviously too tall. He's twice as tall as the door itself, which is going to be anywhere from 7 to 8 feet for an outside door. But we also, I mean, he's like Peter Pan. He doesn't have a shadow. Okay, so what you want to do in this case is find the approximate horizon line, and for the most part, if you have an eye-level camera, which this is, might be slightly higher than eye level, but if you have an eye level camera, then all of the eye levels of your people are going to be approximately on that horizon line. Okay, so that's your first step. So what I'm going to show, let me show my rulers. What I'm going to do is drop a line in that's approximately 6 feet high. 5.5, 6 feet high, something like that. So for me, I think that's approximately my horizon line. It might be a little lower, actually, because the camera is a little higher. I think it's slightly higher. But anyway, that's what I'm going to go with. So this person, when I resize him, his face is going to be aligned with that line. Okay. So, but if I want him to be walking or into the door or toward the door, but be up on that step, then he needs to be up there. Okay. So that is an approximately scaled and positioned person. Actually, it looks a little small. This is probably a wide-angle lens. Hang on. Let me pull this up a little bit. It does look very small. I think the camera angle is a little high.
This is more or less eyeballing.
Yeah, you're kind of eyeballing this sort of thing. All right. Anyway, that should work fine. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually, because it's a black silhouette, I'm going to switch it to a white silhouette so that I can sort of show a juxtaposition between the person and the shadow. So, but first, I'm going to duplicate this shadow. Okay, so I'm going to right-click this and duplicate it. So I have 2 layers. One is the person. Let me go back to this layer here, and I'm going to put a box around them, and I'm going to go to image, adjustments, and I'm going to invert. So that's like the quickest way to go from a black silhouette to a white silhouette. I'm also going to pull him over to the side so that he doesn't conflict with that column as much. Okay. So now I have the person and I have his shadow. Finding the technical positioning of the shadow is a little bit different. You need to approximate where the shadow is in the rendering itself, and because of perspective, it gets a little bit skewed. But what you want to do is find something that can be relatively scaled to a human being, and measure its shadow. So what I kind of like to do is find like a chair or something like that. So I notice that this chair is yay high and it goes out to about that far. That's really important because the distance from the top of the element to how far its shadow is basically going to be your shadow length for a human being too. So I'm going to right-click on Line Tool, and I'm going to draw a line from the top of the chair to where its shadow ends, which is approximately there, by my best guess anyway. You can use this Move tool and sort of yank it back to where the person is. And then what you need to do is find basically just extend that line down to wherever it would hit the ground. But it also needs to do that along the line or angle of the shadow. So this line right here, the shadow isn't exactly 90 degrees horizontal. Okay, it's kind of heading back in the frame a little bit. So I'm going to pull this line down to my person's feet, and then I'm going to go back to shape 1, and I can resize that. So free transform that path. I'm going to hold shift and yank it all the way down to there. Okay, so my person's shadow needs to be as long as that line. So it needs to sort of meet down here, approximately. Does that make sense? So you're just taking all of your cues off of what you already see in the image itself. Now, the weird thing about this one is it's such an extreme sort of angle, you're not really going to be able to discern the shadow that much, but I like to start with the shadow of the person anyway. So I'm going to select that layer, I'm going to free transform this person and turn them and just squeeze them into position. Okay, so usually I anchor a foot and then I pull it as long as it's going to need to go. And then I start to skew it so that the feet match. Meaning, if you hold control and you pull this top one right there, you can actually start to skew the angle of the shadow. Okay, so I hit enter there. Let me turn off these two lines, and there you see the approximate shadow of that person. It's a little extreme. It's probably not perfect. I left it a little bit wide because I wanted you to be able to kind of see where his arms were sort of popping out of his body a little bit. But a shadow is never going to be 100% black, right? Because it's a shadow, there's diffuse light sort of bouncing around, like, right? You can see the shadow is grayscale when I put my hand in front of the board. So that layer will always have to be brought down in opacity to something more like that. And you generally want to color match what you see adjacent to it. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is take my person and put them in front of the shadow so the shadow doesn't take precedence. Okay, so that's how you place a person and place a shadow. Nifty, right? Yes? You put a box around it, and you go to Image, Adjustments, and Invert. Did you get that? Image, Adjustments, Invert, to switch it from shadow to person and from person to shadow. Okay, what questions do you guys have?
Do we have to have a big, image with a shadow? Because I realized that the image that I chose has no shadow.
Kind of.
Most
Yeah.
likely.
If you're going to do it technically accurately, I mean, you could approximate off of some things if you don't have a lot of shadow, but yeah. Do you have any light in the space at all?
No, it's sunset. Like, it's sunset, but it's a lot of diffuse light.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to close this one down, and then I'll move to something else.
Barely.